Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pixelists. I'm Will. As always, that's Blake. And today we're talking about Little Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 13.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, baby. Unlucky number 13, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, and we keep getting these out later and later.
Yeah, that's my bad. I was busy this past weekend, and then we had Valentine's Day, and then it was my girlfriend's birthday. So apologies for getting this out so late, but at least we're making it before episode 14 airs tomorrow.
It'd be confusing, yeah, if this came out after tomorrow. So
yeah,
we're tentatively getting it out still before the next ones. That's good.
Yeah, and hopefully, moving forward, we'll be able to get back to usually Friday uploads, but we'll see.
Right. I'm going out of town this weekend, so.
Oh, nice. Okay, so maybe episode 15s will.
Yeah. It's my dad's birthday, so
that's fair.
Don't forget episode, I think, so let's see, we have this one, 14 episode. Oh, I think this is the last one of the month.
Oh, is it? Oh. Yeah.
Because we're not doing the last week, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Is there not? Yeah, I guess February's short, huh?
Yeah. So maybe in lieu of episode 15, we'll do our video on our favorite fan theories, which a lot's happening. So if you have a great theory, drop it in the comments, and we're going to do a video on some of our favorites and also share some of our own personal favorites. We're going to go hardcore Mephisto and just come up with zany ideas for what could be happening. So
yeah, I'm excited for that. So yeah. Let us know let us know multiple theories so we have something to talk about. But speaking
related
of theory,
to D&D.
Yeah. Preferably Critical Role.
The moon landing. Let's talk about.
But okay, speaking of the moon, I don't know if this episode is like an appropriate place to talk about it, because really this entire episode was just the ball.
Right.
So, but I had some stuff kind of click for me that I want to like talk about. So I don't know if we should do it during this episode, or maybe like even just do it in that video, or just make a completely separate video. But
we could maybe after we do the recap, we can just jump into that and then talk about the episode or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that works too.
And then don't forget, we're doing our Witcher video.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah,
should I keep hyping it up?
That's right.
It's gonna be really disappointing, but I like season 2. So
we'll see. Well, I mean, we'll hold that conversation.
I also did finally see Spider-Man. I feel like it's too late to do a Spider-Man video.
It's like the slowpoke meme.
Yeah,
Pokemon.
In about 2 months, but I finally saw it. So
yeah, I mean, we do. There's a few Marvel things that I want to talk about that we haven't had a chance to yet. So maybe we could do like a catch-all video and kind of talk about like Hawkeye and Spider-Man. And
did you see Eternals?
Yeah.
Was that good?
It was okay. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I liked it for what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right.
It's on Disney Plus now, so you can, if you have that, you can just watch it.
All right. Well, let's talk about episode 13. And what we always like to do is do a little recap. Obviously episodes can be like 4 hours plus. And so if you weren't able to catch the entire episode, or you forgot maybe what happened, we do a very brief 20-minute recap. And we clip that out as its own YouTube video. It might be what you're watching right now. And if that's the case, we then do a full deep dive discussion on the episode. And you can find that down in the comments if you're watching just the recap. But my man Will, I think you offered to take the first half today.
Yeah. I will kick us off. So yeah, without further ado, we've got episode 13 of Critical Role. And so we basically pick up, right where we left off last time, which is we've got, Team Dorian and Team Estros arriving in these carriages to this ball. And so within Team Dorian's carriage, they're basically just trying to figure out what their plan is going to be to make this ring swap. Because if you recall, they have like a magically enchanted ring that they are trying to get onto Armand's finger that is a exact duplicate of a ring that he wears. So they're going back and forth on what they should do. They don't really land on anything concrete, but what they do land on is kind of their story, which is that, Dorian is going as himself, Bronte. Fern is going to be his +1. and Orem and Imogen are going to be their servants.
Yeah, which there's so much great just commentary around Laura Bailey being the servant, and
Maud.
it's like you're cool not being the date, right? So anyway,
So then in Team Escheros's carriage, they're kind of going over what their plan is and, trying to figure out who the members of the quorum are. And, Escharos is basically just giving them the lay of the land again. And F.C.G asks, if stuff does like hit the fan, like Escharos, what do you bring to the table? And he lets them know that he is not skilled in like the arcane, but he is martially capable. So he's more of a fighter. But he does let them know that, hey, your weapons and all your things, like they're going to take that at the door. So like, don't bring anything in, and leave your, like, F.C.G, leave your backpack in the car, yada yada yada. So because of this, Laudna puts one of Chetney's chisels in her hair to try to sneak in a weapon, and then Chetney puts another chisel of his inside of F.C.G because he's got this like
right.
Void in the middle of him.
See a bag of what is it? Bag of holding.
Yeah. Whoa, that would be cool if they could like enchant him to literally be one. Ooh. Anyway, so they arrive, and Team Dorian is the first one to kind of arrive and get checked in. Orem does manage to get his shield inside, and he also sneaks a dagger taped to the inside of his thigh in, and he successfully gets away with that. And Dorian manages to talk the guards into letting him go in with this decorative sword. I think he rolls like a deception check or a persuasion check, and he's like, it's never even been used. It's just purely for my outfit. And so they allow him to take that in as well.
It's the gambler's blade.
Oh, correct. Yeah.
And he's put like gems and stuff on it to make it seem ornamental or whatever.
That's right. I forgot it was Bertrand's sword.
Yeah.
So then Team Escharos checks in, and Escharos does manage to get his staff in. He kind of is playing it up as a walking stick, that he needs as an old man. And they also introduce F.C.G as kind of Escheros's like personal servant, which Escharos is kind of uncomfortable with, but he's like, I can't wait to get you some drinks, and is just really playing it up. So the group gets in. Oh, and no one else in Team Escharos tries to get in any weapons. They all just leave it all behind. So then we get to like the announcer, who is going to announce the people as they enter. So we've been waiting to see if this is maybe where they try out a group name, but unfortunately for Team Dorian, they just announce him as his name, Bronte, second son of the Silken Squall. And a few people turn their heads to kind of look when they enter. But then Escharos enters, and he's just introduced as himself as well. And then a bunch of heads turn and look, because as we know, Escharos is kind of a recluse, and a lot of people are surprised to see him attending this event. So anyway, everyone's inside kind of looking around, and a few people stick out to them immediately. They notice Ella Lumas, who is accompanied by Oshad Breggio, and Ashton notices Gianna Hexam. So one of the first things F.C.G does is cast Detect Magic and kind of wheels around the room really quick, and he notices that the whole room is aglow. Like everyone is carrying magical items, jewelry, and it's just a lot of people came prepared, or at least came to show off their wealth. So he's doing that. Meanwhile, Imogen reaches out to Orem and lets him know that I've never been in a group of this many people. Like, I may need help if like the voices get too much. And Orem says, hey, no worries. I have experience getting people out of rough situations. Consider it done if that's what you need. And, she's like, okay, awesome. Thank you. And around this time, the announcer speaks up and introduces General Ratanish, which hopefully I'm saying that right, who is the leader of the Paragon's Call. And he is accompanied by a group of like 5 or 6 really like rough looking soldiers, as it were, that basically did the bare minimum to be presentable for this event, but they're like wearing their leathers, and you can tell that these are soldiers. And Ratanish himself is a half giant who appears to be in his 40s, we're told. So the party's getting going here, and everybody starts to mingle to see what they can find out. And Armand Treshy is also announced around this time, and he is accompanied by a half-elven woman in her 20s. But as soon as they come in and are announced together, they basically immediately part ways and go mingle in different areas. So the party's, sitting around trying to see what they should do first. And this older male goblin approaches the Estros in that group and introduces himself as Headmaster Grease Alacritos. Again, hopefully that pronunciation is okay. Of the Allegiance of Allsight. And he's like, hey, I'm an introvert too. I could tell you're kind of not comfortable at these events. So I figured, we could come kind of bond because I'm the same way. And he, like I said, he introduced himself and he's like, I'm here with a friend, Ajit Dayal. And that immediately perks up Chetney, who is familiar with that name. And he's like, oh, and Chetney immediately introduces himself as CC Pop and is trying to set up an introduction with Ajit for Estros so that, Chetney can get in with him as well. And Grease says, yeah, I'll try to set that up. He's currently, making the rounds, speaking with other people. And around this time, F.C.G. shows up with drinks for everyone. And per usual, Grease is like, whoa, talking automaton, like, tell me more. But Laden and them have also arrived, and they're like, okay, Headmaster Grease, like, what do you do? And he reveals that he's like studies histories and he's based it on Corel. And so Laden says, oh, we're going to the Heartmoor. Like, can you tell us anything about that? And he says, unfortunately, I've never been. This is actually my first time, True. And so they continue to make small talk, and F.C.G. offers to go get more drinks for everyone. And Ashton tells F.C.G., hey, while you're doing that, keep an eye on Armand Treshy's date. Like, something weird is going on there. Yeah. And he says, okay. And as F.C.G. goes around, he decides to cast Detect Good and Evil just to see if anything pings. And Laudna is the only thing that does, pinging as undead from that spell. Alrighty. Meanwhile, back with Team Dorian, Dorian is approached by Lord Preston Drodelon, who introduces himself and, says he's a self-made man who made his fortune in Asilra as Lord of the Quadroads. And Travis immediately perks up at this, and this is something Blake and I'll talk about once we get into the discussion. But pretty fun little cameo here. Anyway, so they get to talking, and Dorian asks Preston about Armand, and Preston says, Armand is the black sheep of his family, so he's always working really hard to justify himself. And Imogen pipes in, is like, well, who else should we be like paying attention to at this party? And Preston points out Gavis, who is, the ninth public member of the quorum. He's a good person to get to know, basically. Meanwhile, Orem, with a super high perception check, has spotted Dorian's brother Cyrus is present at this party, and he's currently talking to Armand's date. Yeah, and so they're like, say again?
I think it was Emoth?
Yeah. And so they're like, well, what's going on here? And around this time, a glass clings, and Gavis is actually taking the stage and is preparing to speak, and he thanks everyone for coming and making Drusar great, and, typical political type of speech here. Yeah. Somebody calls out from the crowd and is like, what's going on with these attacks? Like, what's the quorum doing about it? And he's like, all that's being considered, don't worry about it, but like, now is not the time. If you want to talk to me and thus the quorum, like, come find me in private. We're at a party right now. And basically, again, thanks everybody, toast to the city, and then music begins to play. So after this, Ashton has decided, you know what, I got to go see what's going on with Armand's date. And so he walks over there and sees that she's like sitting alone in a chair, and he tries to make small talk with her to see if like what he can glean, but Taliesin rolls really poorly. And so she eventually just gets up and walks away from him. And so while all these things are happening like simultaneously, by the way, so back with Dorian, he and Fern have decided what they're going to do to get Armand's attention to hopefully swap this ring out is do like a fancy dance that, Fern is familiar with back from her time at the court. And Dorian's like, oh, I haven't done that in forever, but, just show me the moves and we'll do it. So they're doing that, and Imogen relays this telepathically to F.C.G. and is like, can you help them out? So he casts Enhance Ability on them, increasing their charisma to hopefully make their dance better. Again, as all this is going on, Gavis actually approaches and is like blown away at F.C.G. once again, being like, whoa, whose automaton is this? Like, I'll pay, like, come claim him. I'm blown away by this. And so because of that, Dorian and Fern kind of introduce themselves, and he can immediately tell that they are like not from around here. because they don't know who he is. And
Mhm.
they ask about the Paragon's call, and he says that, they're here due to safety concerns in the city. Like, they're at the ball to keep an eye on things. And he explains that the Dance of the Crossroads is about to happen, which Fern's like, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that. And what that essentially is,
It's like,
people
what's your
just,
favorite part?
yeah, yeah. He's like, I
Like,
thought you were new.
yeah.
That you basically, it's a big dance. People just keep switching partners, and it's a great way to break the ice and kind of make new political connections and new friends and everything. And basically, after he explains that, he's like, I'm bored of you, and just walks away to go talk to other people. Um, and so Orem during this has walked over to Chetney and basically fills him in on the fact that Cyrus is here. And he tells Chetney, like, hey, go take care of this, like, get him out of here. It's too dangerous for him to be here. And so Chetney's like, okay, I'm on it. And as he goes off to do that, the band begins to play, and they are starting the Dance of the Crossroads. And that's actually where we go to break. So if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, sure. The second half of this episode can be summarized as everything goes bad and everyone rolls less than 10. So they're
Yeah.
just so it gets a little confusing because there's so many things happening simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
and on the same token, everything they're trying to do is requiring an additional roll, and they're always rolling really bad. And Matt actually did not. Well, I'll get to that in a second. So the dance starts, and Dorian and Fern are beginning their plan of trying to get to Armand to maybe get the ring slipped off him. And Imogen is also thinking about using her telekinetic powers to slip the ring off. Now, they practiced this in the little wagon as they were arriving, and Matt pretty clearly kind of inferred like, hey, this would be really clunky to try to pull off someone.
Yeah.
And I almost felt it was kind of like a DM like tip, like it may not be the best way to do it. But in typical fashion, they do it anyway. And so what ends up happening is Fern is dancing with Preston, who's just totally infatuated with her and is
Yeah.
inviting her to, anytime you're in EOS, you need to come visit, you need to come see me. And Fern actually notices that his clothing is actually, at closer look, like this up close, is actually a bit tattered. And you get this sense of actually someone who is a bit washed up and is actually kind of portraying themselves as just a noblesque, luxurious type of person. And Fern actually feels kind of sorry for him and lets him down easy and says, I don't think you're my type. But he is still just, completely infatuated with her.
Yeah.
Um, she gets spun over and cuts in to Dancing with Armand. And instantly she introduces herself as being from the Feywild. And I think it's Imogen who does detect thoughts. And he is just really put off by her. Like, because he knows the Night King, the Nightmare King, and knows he's from the Feywild as well. So he's like, is this someone working with the Nightmare King? What's going on? Why, I'm just so sick of these people. Like, what's just very distraught about it. Well, they kind of have this sort of cat and mouse conversation where they're being coy with one another. And then she actually asks who she should be speaking to. And he points over to Gavis. And as he's doing that, he twirls her and she uses that moment to pop on the ring and actually does it so forcefully that it actually there's almost like a pop, like a not dislocating, but like an audible pop of his thumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Pops
Where the
off the
ring,
ring.
yeah, where it goes off his thumb and onto the floor. And he's like, seriously? And it's just like, what is your problem?
Yeah.
Well, Fern kicks the ring so that it, tink, 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 like goes, off into the crowd. And then it becomes very frantic all of a sudden. So Orem is like, I have the fake ring. And he's like walking over to be like, hi, I think you dropped this. And Imogen screaming at him, being like, pick up the ring, pick up the ring, pick up the ring. And he's like, I have the ring, I have the ring. And
Yeah.
they're just not on the same page. Like,
Yeah.
she wants him to get the real ring, but he's like, that ring doesn't matter because I have
like
this
pretend
one.
you're picking it up type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So finally he shuts her out of his head and then basically arrives to try to give it to him. But Armand is kind of like, he rolls really poorly. And so Armand's like, who is this idiot? I don't have time for you. And begins like walking off looking for the ring. This shenanigan continues for a little bit where even Orem walks by and is like, hey, I think I saw your ring over there. And again, Armand is kind of like, And actually, he has a Minotaur sidekick that he basically looks at and says, "Keep an eye on this guy."
Yeah.
So, long story short, it's actually F.C.G who actually picks up the real ring eventually, while Imogen is kind of pretending as like the servant to be like, "I'm looking for it. I'm trying to find it." And what ends up happening is Dorian ends up throwing the ring over the crowd into Fern's hand. This is like the worst possible plan ever. And then Fern is like, "I think you dropped this." And Armand is kind of like, just pissed off and is
Yeah.
like, what a bunch of weirdos. Puts the fake ring on, thinking that it's been retrieved, and goes back about his business. So they've successfully got the ring on him. Meanwhile, Ashton had picked up that Emoth, I can't remember how to say her name, was sort of waiting for a cue to do something sort of nefarious. And she, as this commotion is happening, slips away into like this back hallway, which Chetney notices. And Chetney actually had gone over to Cyrus to be like, "Dude, what the heck are you doing here? Like, why are you here? What's going on?" And he actually mentions that he's here like under an alter ego, Lord, if I can find it, Lord Dirtanya, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And basically says, like, "I'm here for Lady Emoth. She's done some old business with the Corsairs, and we just have some business together." It's very strange. It's like, why would you have business with this woman who seems kind of evil because she's here with Armand? Well, so she slips into the back hallway. Chetney's kind of like, "Oh, like, well, where's she going?" And decides he wants to follow her. There are guards blocking the door, so he casts invisibility to sort of sneak back into that hallway. And then also Cyrus actually distracts them by asking where the bathroom is, which he doesn't realize it's Cyrus. He's just like, "Oh, this is my moment to kind of sneak in." So using his keen wolf scent, he actually picks up that Emoth has gone into one of the doors, like in this hallway. And also in this whole process, continuing the theme of rolling really poorly, he rolls like, I don't know, like a 2, I think, in his stealth check.
Yeah.
Like walks right into a table and like, doesn't just knock it. It's like totally like a pot falls over or something.
Yeah.
It's just, so the guards are actually going through, like trying to like find him. And all that to say, they don't discover him. He goes to the door, he listens into the door and hears like this heavy grinding sound. There's also like this really strong musty odor that he can't really quite figure out. So turns the knob and it's unlocked, and he peeks inside and it seems like to be a suite room, but he doesn't really see anyone, but there's like dressers, kind of just a nicer place. And then Lady Emoth comes to the door almost like in this supernatural speed, and he kind of jumps back and sort of hides against the wall to kind of like make himself small. And he notices that she is sweating and seems to be really anxious. She shuts the door, locks it. He goes back out to the ball. And around this time in the ball, what's happening is Vali Dertrana, the business commissioner, actually spots Ashton. And the great moment of this is he spots Ashton. He goes over to General Ratanish and kind of points like, "Hey, something's going on with that guy." And Ratanish starts walking over. And Ashton really proudly says like, "Well, I'm wearing a mask, so he doesn't know it's me." And then everyone's like, "Yeah, but it's the mask of the Nightmare King." And he's like, "Oh crap, right. That's you're right." So Vali's obviously recognized this mask and sent Ratanish over. Ratanish comes over and is like, "Hey, where'd you get the mask? What's going on?" And it's kind of like, typical like bodyguard, like, "What's going on here?" Like kind of bouncer-esque.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, a friend gave it to me," and rolls poorly again. And Ratanish actually rips the mask off his face to get a good look at him. And then Ashton, in response, slaps him. And Ratanish then slaps him back. And it was kind of like, an old like tiff you see in movies with like two nobles where they decide like they slap one another and then like, we need to settle this with a duel. And that's what they actually decide to do, is they're going to go outside and settle this with a duel. And Ratanish actually grabs him by the shoulder to sort of forcefully walk him out. And Ashton rolls, I think, like a natural 20 or a dirty 20 and just like, throws him off him And the crowd, by the way, is like really getting energized. Like, ooh, this could be really fun. So people are actually heading out of the ballroom now to basically see this happen. Ladna, by the way, has just been dancing with people and was like, okay, I guess nothing's really important happening with me, so I'll just jump in with this. And then also, as people are kind of like moving their way out, Chetney looks around and realizes he doesn't see Cyrus anywhere. And he remembers, oh, that was Cyrus who helped me sneak into the hallway before. He must still be in that hallway. And he was looking for Lady Emoth. So he's like, crap, I have to go make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
So he ducks back into the hallway, doesn't see him, goes back over to the door, notices that the lock has been broken, and he realizes he can step inside. He hears in a back room a commotion between two people, and in this immediate suite room are these small, shadowy creatures who are like scurrying through stuff and like pocketing stuff. And they are the shade creepers that we saw early on in the campaign.
Yep.
It's in this moment where Lady Emoth, in her supernatural speed, comes out from this back room, sort of bolts to the door. And instead of just sweating, she now, in a very Duggar fashion, has this liquid mucus kind of coming from her pores, black beady eyes, and she shuts the door. And that's basically how the episode ends.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy stuff.
It was.
A lot of stuff all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And a lot of really bad rolls too.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually commented this on the Critical Role VOD, so not to repeat myself, but it bears repeating. Matt, just a masterclass of DMing this episode, just having that many NPCs ready and played perfectly, and just that many balls in the air.
Yeah,
it was impressive.
Yes. It was also impressive. The Critical Role team, the fact that they were able to put together a plan for the entire first hour of of the episode, and then
not use it at all, bro. That is Critical Role. If you had to distill it down to one sentence, is like, we plan for 6 hours and then we don't do it at all.
My favorite part is where they were in one wagon talking about their plan, and then after an hour it went to the other wagon, and they were like, surely they know that,
Yeah.
I can't remember what the key detail was. Like, well, if they're talking about it for an hour, they definitely know.
Yeah.
So
that was great.
Well, did you enjoy the episode?
I did. I was looking forward to this. I thought it would be fun, and it was. The only thing we didn't really get was a combat, but we're kind of left at the door of that for next episode with this duel between Tanish and Ashton. And I know I've said this a lot, so I'm not going to go ahead and give the spiel again, but I love RP heavy episodes, so that's what we had here. And again, I was just impressed by Matt juggling all these balls in the air. So I loved it. What about you though?
Loved it. Yeah, I thought it was great. Really enjoyed it. Felt like Matt did such a great job of just like the vibe of this ball. And I just loved Ashley Johnson being like, do they have vegan options? He's like, yes, they have literally what do you want? And they're going to give it to you. It's like the world building of this scene was really great. And the way you described it, like the whole time I was listening, I was visually seeing it all happen and play out, which can be really clunky as a DM when you're in a room with dozens of people. It can be really hard to like create an environment where you have a sense of being a person in the crowd. And especially like you said, managing so many things were happening at the same time. And there were so many roles that they messed up too. So but yeah, loved it. Thought it was great.
Nice. All right. Well, so before, if should we talk about this theory, you think, that's not related to the episode? Let's
hit the theory, because we're going to probably jump around a bit in this episode, because there's in terms of like progression, I thought this episode was a lot more of like, okay, that's information here. That's an insight as to what's happening here. But like, I think it makes sense for us not to necessarily be like, then this happened, let's talk about that. So hit me with your theory.
Okay. And so
is this your theory? Did you read this or?
It is. All right. Okay. Just a quick general disclaimer for this. I'm calling it a theory. It's not really like a theory that's pointing to anything concrete. It's just connections that I made that was like a light bulb moment. And I haven't seen anybody else say these connections, but like I'm not trying to say I'm a genius. Like this for all I know, this is like known information that everyone else in the community was like, yeah, idiot. Like we've all realized that. But for me, it just clicked.
Yeah.
So all that being said,
You're like, Imogen, the dream is, and we're like, yeah.
that is part of it.
Oh, Imogen's in the dream.
But and so again, using the word theory maybe isn't even right, because all I'm basically going to do is just present a bunch of information that comes together nicely for me now. So all that being said, you're a great sounding board, because I haven't like practiced this, so I'm just going to be an information stream to you right now. All right.
Okay.
So in no particular order with how I'm presenting this information. Okay, we know that Imogen is having these dreams that give her powers, and she went to research it. Found this book that talked about her mother and this study, and that this is something that happens on a 30-year cycle. Right. And we know that in the dream, shit's hitting the fan. Like it's a red storm that's tearing up the earth. Like she needs to run. Yeah. We know that the Loomis twins also checked out that book, were interested in the celestial bodies, and I think we even speculated that maybe they too were having this dream. We don't know that, but for whatever reason, they were interested in this as well, and they were killed. Now, whether those two things are connected or not, we're not sure, but seemingly. Also, the way they were killed was how Keyleth of the Arashari was attacked. And this is where I probably should think about how I'm connecting these pieces of information, so bear with me. But Keyleth, a very powerful person in Exandria, a member of Vox Machina, a leader of one of the Ashari tribes. Now, the Ashari tribes are 4 tribes across Exandria, each tasked with like protecting's not the right word, but like making sure the 4 elements, air, earth, fire, and water, those planes are like playing well with Exandria. Like the 4 Ashari tribes, they are supposed to cultivate and like make sure that those elements and those planes are behaving, for lack of a better word, because a long time ago,
I envision them as like protecting, making sure everything should be where it should be, is kind of how I have my internal explanation, I guess.
Right. And that whole thing started because a long time ago, there was something called the elemental sundering, where all these planes of existence kind of overlapped, and so like the elemental plane of fire like burst through Exandria, and there's still like a big
junction.
Yeah, basically. So that's why the Ashari split up into these 4 groups and were doing their thing. So the elemental thundering took place because of this event that happens every 30 years, just like Imogen's dream. Just like in the Legend of Vox Machina, the Briarwoods are waiting for. If you've been watching it, they've been talking about it's too early.
There's like a eclipse or something that's happening, or something?
So something with perhaps Ruidus. They talk of a celestial solstice, and in Legend of Vox Machina, the Briarwoods are waiting for this, but not to spoil it, but they're like, we have to push things along, like we don't have time to wait for that. So anyway, the Briarwoods are connected to the Whispered One, who we know to be Vecna, and Vecna has a long storied history, but Vecna also used this celestial event, the celestial solstice, to do things. It enabled him to teleport and you like have a surge in power, basically. And what the celestial solstice is these ley energies like overlaying. It's the planes, the elemental planes coming together, which is the same thing that caused the elemental sundering. So anyway, I think all these events are the same thing. And again, this may be obvious to people, but Imogen's dream is, I think, the precursor to this celestial solstice event, which is the planes overlapping, which also makes perfect sense with what we know from EXU. There's this enormous well of energy springing up from the fire plane, presumably.
Right. Yeah.
The omen that the Nirdal Pak people were worried about. It's this event. So we know this celestial solstice is happening. Imogen has this terrible dream. I think that the Loomis twins, whether or not they had the dream, were studying all of this. And I think whoever is planning to use this event for nefarious purposes is probably who attacked them, probably who attacked Keyleth, because Keyleth is the leader of the Ashari, whose like job is to make sure this shit doesn't go down that way. Not to mention the fact that she was a member of Vox Machina who, you know, fought the Briarwoods. And we know Laudna is freaking patroned by one of the Briarwoods. So maybe this is partially the Briarwood Delilah again trying to reuse the same event that she failed to use 30 years ago.
Has it been 30 years since?
Yeah, since campaign 1. So like all this timing is adding up. And so like maybe, I'm not saying Delilah is the one behind it, but like the machinations possibly, which would make sense as to why Keyleth and the Loomis twins were attacked. Like the connection is the fact that both of these people stood in the way of possibly preventing this event or what may try to come of it. But yeah, so again, I don't really have like an end game for what I'm trying to tie together with all these pieces, but that all clicked for me where it hadn't previously. Like I didn't put together that Imogen's dream and this 30-year event also was the celestial solstice where the planes overlap and everything.
Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah, so again, that was just a bunch of like word vomit, and again, everyone might be like, yeah, bro, we knew that.
No, I mean, I didn't know it because I don't have any of that context that you had. Yeah, the furthest that my internal dialogue had gotten to was just that, every 30 years there's some kind of event. And then in watching Legend of Vox Machina, which we've been putting up videos on that, another plug, check out his Easter egg videos. They're good. In seeing that, and there's like the scene where the Briarwoods mention that solstice, and I was like, oh, cool. So like some kind of, what is that? You know, so that's the only context I had. Really interesting hearing about that elemental. How did you phrase it? Like that solstice is when like the elemental planes kind of,
like the planes kind of like align. So like there's massive like
synced.
Yeah, there's like a power potential which plays into, if you saw EXU, I know you did, but speaking generally, if you saw EXU, there was this massive plateau that sprang out of the ground that was like from the fire plane, presumably, that was just like this massive well of energy waiting to be molded. So presumably that's happening all over the world. So if somebody has like nefarious purposes for that amount of power, like something really bad could potentially happen. So I feel like that's what Imogen's premonition dream is about, and that's what potentially Delilah Briarwood is up to with Laudna and whoever else she has puppeting out in the world. So I don't know.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. It feels like we're heading to like a big climactic like story moments, because there's a lot of plot threads that are just sort of hanging. And they're being kind of, sorry, my dog's barking in the background. They're being kind of like furthered with each episode. Like now we have this Lady Emeth who seems to be involved with a similar force that affected Duggar, obviously.
Yeah.
And so there's that whole thing. You know, we have Ratanish in the Paragon's Call, and it just feels like so many of these things have welled up now to surely we're heading towards like a big cumulative moment.
Cumulative, I think.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder if we're going to get some kind of like nod to like the theory you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, who knows the time scale that Matt has in his head? Like, I don't know where exactly we are in this 30-year cycle. Like, is it year 30 and it's like this month that this stuff is happening, or is it like the end of year 29 and maybe it's in like 6 months from now when this solstice happens? But to me, the whole, let's just call it the solstice for lack of a better word, the whole solstice Easter egg basket is like one potential thing, and then this political Duggar shade creeper thing is probably not connected to that. This is like just like a whole nother story thread. So I feel like that's what we're headed till first, and maybe this solstice thing is a little bit down the road.
It would seem to be a little down the road for the sheer fact that no one's mentioning it. Like you're not hearing townspeople be like, oh yeah, the solstice is coming up. Like to me, that gives the implication that it's a little bit away. but it would be interesting if we start hearing that kind of like terminology in like the near future or like 30 episodes down the road. Because it does feel like a more longer term thing. But yeah, lots of plot threads, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because they feel linked. EXU had a lot of plot threads, and those felt very
Yeah.
disparate. And we talked a lot about why can't I hold all these plot threads?
Yeah.
That
Well,
meme.
but I will say that if what the stuff I was just talking about does make me be a little kinder on EXU, if knowing that plateau and stuff that really didn't lead anywhere, like, oh, this ominous warning from the people of Nerdopok that really didn't lead anywhere. If those were just little seeds that were planted for this storyline of this big celestial solstice climactic event,
Yeah,
then that makes more sense to me. But like, we just obviously didn't have any of that perspective at the time. It was just a new thing every single episode, and it's like, well, wait, what about these
yeah,
18 things we were already focused on?
right, yeah. No, that's fair, and you know, maybe it's good to, maybe shelf some of those. I mean, because we don't really know where else to go with those things. Maybe
Right.
shelf them and talk about kind of the micro of this episode,
Yeah.
the more specific things. Because there were, there's a lot happening in the macro. There's also a lot happening in the micro. Just to ramble off things. I think feel like there's more to say about Armand and the Paragon's call, Preston,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
La-
yeah.
Lady Emeth, Cyrus. What the heck are you doing? I
Yeah.
think the CR team was kind of just like, you're so stupid. You're so stupid.
You're an
Like, why
idiot.
are you here? Yeah. Um, Ashton with the mask and getting ripped off. I mean, these are kind of like the big narrative points that I'm thinking about. Where do you want to start today?
Let's start with Emoth, because you were already kind of talking about it. I think that's a good spot. Is that what was interesting to me is, one, clearly she's whatever Duggar was. I think that's
Right.
obvious. But the interesting connection that happened to me is she too is connected to the Corsairs, just like he was.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, he was no longer part of the Corsairs. He had like left, but it's still interesting that they both have that Corsair connection. And so I'm wondering, is that just coincidence, or like, what did the Corsairs really know? And were they lying about being distanced from Duggar? Because, also Cyrus, like, she seemingly was doing whatever she's doing in Shade Creeper Land, but she also was there for the Corsairs because she was dealing with Cyrus and they had some agenda. So is that the same agenda, or did she have two agendas, like a Corsair agenda and a Shade Creeper agenda?
I got the implication that she had done some work in the past with them, and he was, because he mentions like trying to like settle his debts. Like it was kind of like a Hail Mary, like she's going to be at the ball. Maybe because she has like a soft spot for the Corsairs, maybe she can help me figure some things out. That's the implication I got. But in similar Duggar fashion, the takeaway I got was it's been a while, and now she's a lot different than maybe she was back when she worked with the Corsairs. It's still a really fuzzy connection because obviously she seems to be hand in hand with Armand, who can assume is probably evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole like morality or like, I guess, honesty of what the Corsairs have told us, it's definitely in question, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. And I want, like, Cyrus said that he was just there to like rob people, right? Like, wasn't that what he was going to try to score? Like, that was his reason for being there, or no?
I mean, maybe I would have to go back and listen to the conversation. I got it more in the sense of like he was there specifically for Lady Emoth, um, for some reason,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure
Yeah.
because I don't think he was there just to like pickpocket people. Like I think he
Okay.
had business with Lady Emoth, which is why then later on it's implied that he's the one who broke the lock and snuck into her suite.
Right.
I assume was the one who was talking with her. And I mean, is he dead now? I mean, is he? Did she flush him down a toilet? Like what?
Yeah, where
What
is he?
happened? Yeah,
Um, yeah. I mean, I guess he could be in that other room that, like, we heard the commotion in or whatever. But yeah, that's strange.
but
And
she came out full mucus lady though. You
yeah,
know,
and it is
so
strange that, like, okay, if all that is true, which we assume it to be true, then it's interesting why, like, they weren't on the same page, obviously, Cyrus and Emoth, or else why would
Right.
he have to pickpocket the door to see what she was doing? So, like, was Cyrus just curious and wanted to know what was going on, or was he on maybe a mission of the Corsairs to like spy on her? Like that maybe was his true mission or
Mm-hmm.
something? I don't know. I'm
And
just wildly speculating here, but
what's going on with the heavy grinding sound?
to me, and I could be wrong, but to me, I read that as they were pulling furniture away to access the Shade Creeper tunnels, like to potentially
Oh,
escape, at least the Shade
yeah.
Creepers themselves.
Or to let them in.
Or to let them in.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I was envisioning like a wheat granary or them grinding something. It's like, what are you doing? Big stone wheel. That's just can't be this. Could it though? No, probably not.
Maybe that's how they turn people into ooze monsters.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
yeah, we still don't know what that's about.
Yeah. Other
And
than
she
this
can, sorry,
earthy, musty smell.
yeah, and the fact that she can presumably like transition, which I guess we knew this for Duggar too, but we really didn't ever have like a normal depiction of Duggar. He always looked weird.
Right.
But with the moth, she can like transition from shade creeper form to like looking normal again. So
Right.
that's interesting.
He
Really,
could do that too.
he could. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because when they
Okay.
see him, the similarities between the two of them is they're both very pale and kind of ghastly.
Oh, okay.
But her, and then when she comes to the door, she's kind of reconstituting
Yeah.
herself. Like
Ooh.
bones are popping back in place, and but because Duggar, when they first meet him in the inn, when he's talking to the person that he is like the go between, he's relatively normal, but
Oh,
still
okay.
kind of
Yeah.
gross
Yeah. I guess you're
looking.
right.
Until they fight him in his house. So,
And
but yeah,
and again, this is just like pure speculation, but I wonder if like what Armand knows. Like, does he
right,
know that she is that? And if so, that connects him to Duggar more than likely, which we know Armand is responsible for just chaos happening all over Drusar. So it would
right,
make sense that he was the one behind Duggar. So
right.
maybe he's the one behind her. Um, but yeah, it just seemed like she was looking for something in that room, right? Like, surely
Yeah.
it's more than just a smash and grab of
But I got
a
the impression
robbery.
that it was her room too. Because wasn't it mentioned that like people, like I think there was some comment around like suites are provided for people who are like coming into Dressar who like need a place to stay or something, or
True, yeah, that is the case. Um,
I guess it's just as easily not her room. I got the impression she was like going to her room though.
yeah, that's a
Because
good
eventually
point.
the guards knew her. The guards knew her and like
They
recognized
let
her
her
and
back,
pushed her table. Yeah.
and she did lock it, which maybe I mean I don't know how locks necessarily work, but like maybe if you have to have a key or if it's like a
Yeah.
so if
How do the
she
locks in Exandria work? Which I love their comment at the start where they were like, "Oh yeah, in Exandria, there's not 24 hours in 7-day weeks," and Matt was like, yes, yes, there is. It's just normal, it's a normal 24-hour day, but 11 months. That's the only difference." I just thought it was funny. Like after all these years, they were still like, "How many days are there?"
yeah,
So
I mean I knew that, but I didn't like think about it. But yeah, it's good to know, and I actually don't know if I knew there were 11 months.
yeah,
Interesting.
no,
But yeah, I don't know. So if it was her room, then what? Like, if it was her room, then maybe she was just letting the shade creepers in.
yeah.
But
But then why are they
they were like,
stuffing?
yeah, they were like looting, right?
Yeah, which if it's someone else's room, how did she get into it? And why do guards seem indifferent that she's going to that room?
Yeah, maybe she has a room there, so they like let her
Mhm.
back, but then she was
Yeah,
in someone else's room from that
yeah,
point.
right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Very interesting. And
Maybe it's
like,
Gavis's room.
say again, who? Oh, Gavis. Yeah,
Yeah, the speaker.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a lot of possibilities here, but if it is an Armand connection, then perhaps it's to, rifle some more feathers to ultimately get the Paragon's call to be able to come in.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting. and not to move away from this if you wanted to talk about it more, but it's interesting that like one of the main reasons to come to this ball was to like figure out quorum stuff, and we literally like they didn't make any progress on that really, other than a quick Gavis introduction.
Right. Right. But they got the ring as
They did,
clunkily
yeah,
as
that's
they
true.
did.
That is true. So yeah, hopefully we'll. Did they ever reveal what the ring actually does? Because I'm still kind of lost on that. I'm assuming it's like a way for them to scry on him or overhears
Yeah, they
conversations or
call it a
something.
magic ring, so it must be. I think even Dorian even calls it a tracking ring or something to that
Okay.
effect. So yeah, I think it's yeah to scry and to basically figure out what he's doing,
Yeah.
figure it out. So
I wonder if he's part of the quorum. I mean, it seemed like he definitely seems powerful and influential, but finding out that he was the black sheep of the family makes me wonder if maybe he's not, but he's just trying to like build his
yeah, I
whatever.
couldn't get the implication that if he used to be, and so now he's done all this stuff to sort of, position himself in that way, or if he still is, which the latter of it would
It's a
seem to
good point.
imply that he's not actually part of the quorum or the elite quorum,
Right.
at least. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, and it's interesting because it definitely feels like him, Volley, Ratanish, and I assume Lady Emoth is with him. It could be maybe she's got her own plans or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point of that he could not be anymore, but I took it to mean that he still is, and that's kind of informing why he's doing all this because he's like
Mhm.
desperate to change his status. So maybe he's kind of going to these extreme lengths of, getting people killed and things
Yeah.
to try to change his position.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully this ring leads to some more answers for him. Uh, but the whole, so I'm jumping around again. Um, but Preston, I'm
Yeah.
sure I don't know if you like ended up seeing what that was about or
No.
not. But I'm sure you noticed how like Travis was like freaking out, and then slowly like the rest of the cast kind of found out. So what that was is, and this is campaign one spoilers slightly. This Preston is from campaign one, so that's
Oh, this character is?
yeah.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
do you care about? I mean, it's not like a big thing. It's just like
Yeah, okay. Sure.
I don't really know how to classify it as a spoiler, but it's just like a small like one episode moment.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah, go for it.
And I won't give you the details around it, but essentially what happens is in campaign one, they encounter this guy who's basically like I don't know if he's homeless, but like he's a nobody,
Yeah, okay.
and they basically are using him to test out something, because Grog doesn't want to test it out himself, so they like grab this guy off the street to do it, and what happens is he actually gets 3 wishes out of it. And so
Oh,
he
okay.
wishes to be the Lord of the Quad Roads. And
Oh.
that's basically the last you ever see of him. And so him showing up here, it was just crazy to see, this character, which
Oh,
kind
so
of
it's
makes
that
sense as
guy.
to why
Yeah.
he's kind of like kind of falling off a little bit because maybe he just
Yeah.
became that because of a wish, so he probably doesn't actually know how to like operate in that world. I mean, it has been 30 years and he's still like
Right.
alive and a noble, so he's done well enough, I guess. But
Right.
um
Yeah.
but yeah, so I don't know if you picked up on this or would remember it in hindsight, but Ashley as Fern was like, "Do you get what you wish for?" Or like she like used some very clever wordplay.
Yeah, and I didn't yeah. I didn't get what I was like, what was that moment that just
Yeah,
happened? Yeah.
so that was pretty fun.
Yeah, which how did he respond to that? I don't remember.
I think he gave her a wink kind of thing. Like he didn't like acknowledge it too on the nose, but he did
Right.
like kind of playfully respond to that.
Yeah.
Um, but he didn't like press her further on like what do you mean, like how do you know that or anything. So
Yeah.
who
Yeah, okay.
knows if he actually took it to mean anything beyond just playful conversation.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I kind of just felt bad for him because I was like, I kind of got the impression it makes more sense now with the context, but like, you know, had a super hot moment of success and then sort of crash and burned afterwards. But it makes more sense what you said of, um, not really knowing how to sustain in that society or that lifestyle and kind of petering off a bit.
Yeah.
But cool character though.
Yeah, like it's so cool for Matt to just bring that back. Deep cut basically. And I love that Travis basically, I think it was when he heard Lord of the Quad Roads, like Travis immediately recognized, and then you could kind of see like this ripple effect of him like telling, I forget who he told, but he told somebody and then I think they texted somebody else. It was just kind of fun to watch that reaction.
Yeah. No, that's cool. The other thing I noticed unrelated to that was the whole conversation on if Dorian needed to pick up the ring or ignore it.
Yeah.
And I could tell it seemed like Laura Bailey was so
She was
annoyed.
getting so frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw her like texting too, because you mentioned texting a second ago. And so I just think it's funny, like these little moments at the table where people are probably texting one another, like, why did he do that? Or,
Yeah. No,
I don't know.
I could totally see, like, I related with Laura there because I felt like she was right. I felt like Dorian just didn't really understand what she was saying,
Right.
like he's like, no, I already have the ring, but she's like, no, you just need to
Right.
like, so he knows that you're the one that found it, like pretend to pick it
Right.
up. And so I could feel her frustration. I think she like
Yeah.
face palmed eventually.
Yeah. It was definitely classic miscommunication because they were both using the word ring, but they meant two different rings.
Yeah.
Because it was like, Dorian, pick up the ring, dude. Like,
Yeah.
but that was a funny scene though too.
Yeah, I can't believe they ultimately got away with it. He just decided to throw
Matt,
it across the room, and
this is what I wanted to mention earlier. Is it felt like Matt was not pulling any punches with how many. I mean, it was like roll after roll after roll, and every time a new character got involved, like a new player got involved, it was like, all right, make another deception check, make
yeah,
another sleight of hand check, or what have you. And it got so clunky and convoluted that even Matt himself forgot that FCG had already picked up the ring.
yeah,
Norm's like, I'm gonna try to find it. Norm's like, I have it. Or FCG's like, I have it. He's like, that's right, you do have it. But yeah, it was anarchy for sure. And I think about like the role of a DM, like, because it very easily could have gone really bad. Like if Armand had been privy to the fact that they were trying to swap the ring, I mean, with Ratanish there, and I mean,
yeah,
this could have been like a really bad outcome, and yet they kind of coasted just on the edge of, like the wagon falling off.
yeah,
Um, and so sometimes I think, as a DM, it's kind of hard to like, what your party really wants to accomplish, but yet their roles are sort of working against them. And maybe that's what made it feel so precarious, was the fact that they just couldn't really get any headway with their roles.
yeah. Yeah, and I even wonder. I mean, they ultimately were successful, but I wonder if maybe that if they were like, because if I was Armand, I don't know. I would be totally. It would totally make sense to me if he, like, if they don't end up getting anything out of this, because maybe he takes the ring off, or like off screen, if you will, realizes what was going on. Because I mean, that was very suspicious. I mean, he knew. I think it was Orem that made the deception check that rolled really low, and he told the guard to like watch out for him. So I mean, clearly there's enough in Armand's mind to feel like, is something going on here? Like a random guy just came up and lied to me about this.
Yeah, and he's
So
already super suspicious of Fern, who is the one who
yeah,
pulled it off his finger.
right,
So yeah, I mean, I think you might be onto something, that it just was so clunky that it's not going to go anywhere. But maybe it does. Maybe Matt just gives it to him,
yeah,
for your hard work. But I mean, with as deceptive and like with so many things that he has, I mean, so many plates he has spinning in terms of things he's responsible for, or seems to be responsible for.
yeah,
It does seem like he'd be aware that, hey, this something just happened.
yeah. I mean, I think so, but I mean, I hope not, because I want to find out some juicy information from the ring, but we'll see. And
Mhm.
so, okay, I'm gonna try to make these connections again. So Armand is connected to Ratanish because Armand's the one pulling all these strings to try to get them the Paragon's
We
Call in
think,
power, right? We
yeah, we
think so. We
think,
don't
right,
know.
right.
But we know that Armand is working with Vali,
Hmm.
who was working with the Nightmare King,
Right.
and Vali is the one that goes and gets Ratanish
Right.
when he sees
The guy with
Ashton.
the mask. Yeah.
So seemingly, and it's not fair to say this with 100% certainty, but seemingly all those players are connected.
Right.
Um,
And we did get a nice detail from Preston about, I think it was Preston. No, maybe might have been Gavis on the Paragon's call, how they were like kind of rebranding themselves.
yeah.
And we kind of saw that with like maybe the flyer they found in the inn of like, the Paragon's call, like sort of like, the answer to all the
Yes.
anarchy. And it seemed like maybe they were a bit of a, well, two thoughts I had. Maybe a bit more of a cutthroat type of organization previously. Like Matt calls them kind of like a Mad Max-esque group of people. But maybe they are rebranding from the Immortal Syndicate
Hmm.
and it's the same organization.
That would be
Or maybe they're
interesting.
like, maybe the Immortal Syndicate, it's like their parent company, and they kind of are like the visible arm of them or something.
That would be interesting. I mean, we still, ever since that early episode mention of them, we have had no sign of the Immortal or the Ivory Syndicate.
Did I say Immortal again?
I don't know. I
I
realized
think
I
it
did.
did.
I don't even know. But
I think I said Immortal Syndicate.
but yeah, I'm glad you said that because I forgot. But I wrote that same thing down that they have a less than savory history and they're trying to rebrand.
Right.
The only other thing we know about them, I think, I don't have this written down, so I'm just pulling this out of the ether. So I might be wrong, but they were in the Hellcatch Valley battle or war, like the Paragon's Call. I think were like a big part of that.
Yeah. Okay.
And we know that that war has been referenced a few times. I think it was between two parts of Marquette, like
Yeah. The
the
Apex
north and
War?
the south. Oh, maybe is that okay? Now
I don't
I don't.
remember the part you're referring to, so that's why I was asking if you're talking about the
So
Apex War.
maybe. So I just remember that there's like the Hellcatch Valley. There was like a big conflict. So I don't know if that was like its own separate entity or if that was just one facet of the Apex War.
Yeah.
I'm
'Cause
not
the Apex
sure.
War was the Stratus Throne, and I think the Court of the Lambent Path. I think.
And speaking of, we found out that the Stratus Throne declined the invite to this, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of like political powers and stuff that I don't really have mapped out in my head yet, like of who they are and what
Yeah, I
their
think
position is.
in the last episode, Matt kind of gave a nice little detail that if you envision the continent of Marquette and you break it up into 3 sections, you have Ank'Harel, Drusar, and maybe the Court of the Lambent Path. And they're all sort of divided by the Hellcatch Valley. I think is something similar to what he had said in terms of like the major power players. Because I think the Stratus Throne is Ank'Harel, right?
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not confident enough. I mean, this is
Yeah.
something like I need to figure out, or we need to figure out if somebody in the comments has like a really concise breakdown of these political entities, like let us
Yeah,
know.
give us your best MS Paint skills and and just draw it out for us because we're having a tough time visualizing it for sure.
Yeah, I just need to dive into the Critical Role wiki or something to get this finally correct in my own mind. But I know, so Jamansa Ord, I know is the like leader. I don't know if king is the right word of on Corel, I think. So I don't
Okay.
know if that is like if that's the Stratus Throne and that's just like another word for it or not, or if that's a completely
Right.
separate entity.
Right.
But anyway, there was I can't find it in my notes, so I don't know if I didn't actually take a note or if it's like another episode that I'm pulling from. But I'm just this is coming back to me. I remembered a potential like idea for maybe like a grander conflict that was happening, perhaps between Drusar and I don't know if it's Ank'Harel or one of these other places, but maybe that they're going head to head because, and again, this is like the worst description ever because I don't explicitly remember what I'm trying to say here, but somebody mentioned something about like Ank'Harel versus Drusar, one of them being like the prime.
Yeah. It was from the previous episode, and I don't remember the exact detail either. I don't know if it was in the context of like, um, oh man, I feel like I'm mixing things up now too.
I
Because there
think
was also the
yeah.
comment about from like when they were at the Star Point Conservatory, um, on like which either on Corel or I think Eos, kind
Yeah.
of vie for who is like the true academic like center.
Yeah, maybe
But
I think that's what it
I
was.
felt like there was like a definite comment around Dressar and on Carell as well. I think also from that episode, but I don't quite remember what it was.
Yeah, me neither. So this makes this kind of a bad discussion point. But what I'm trying to distill from all of that is that there may be like a kind of either behind the scenes or not conflict between two of these like major cities in Marquette to like be the city. And so
Mhm.
maybe there's like some political sabotage or intrigue happening that could be like maybe even what's going on with this broomstone. Like maybe there's some big power play or like terrorist attack that is ultimately trying to like usurp one over the other. Um, I know this was sloppy as hell, but there's some thought amongst all that garbage that I'm trying to convey that maybe I'll be able to do better next week or something.
Yeah, we haven't really got a broomstone sighting in a while. And this is probably with Lady Emoth, probably the closest connection we've had to it, since we
Yeah,
know that Duggar was, I can't think of the phrasing, but basically using, sneaking it in, I guess, through Esteros's warehouse. So we definitely need more information there. And so maybe it'll pop up relatively soon too.
yeah. We'll see.
But
I mean, the nice thing about recording so late is that we have a new episode tomorrow. So maybe
it's
we'll get
great.
some of
Yeah.
this information in 24 hours.
Love my Chick-fil-A day for when
Oh, baby,
I watch them Critical Role.
bro.
There's one other
And
detail.
go ahead.
Sorry, go.
No, I was going crazy. So you go ahead.
I was gonna say there's this other detail line that was said. So Ashton and Ratanish looks like they're about to have a duel of some kind. Fern hands him great scene, hands him the ornamental sword that she's been
Right.
keeping. Says, I
Oh
think you
wait,
might need this.
I wanted to ask you about this. I forgot. What sword does she have, or did she take that from Dorian?
She stole the sword from Volley's office, I think.
And she snuck it in the ball?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay, I missed that. I didn't think she snuck anything in. So I was really confused when she handed him a
She
sword.
she's been keeping it in her bag, but the reason it was confusing is because Matt asked each of them, "What do you have?" And she had said she had left all
Yeah,
her
she said
stuff
she left all
behind.
her stuff. So that's why I was confused. But so
Yeah, and I
she
think it was just
snuck
a
something
moment
in.
where Matt didn't wanna be like, actually, you said you didn't have that?"
Right.
So,
Okay, that makes sense because I was like,
yeah, I
where did
think
this
she just
sword come from?
yeah, the only person who physically brought a sword in that everyone could see was Dorian, who was like, "I don't even know how to use this thing,"
Right.
So, um, so there was that, but, as Ashton's heading out to have this duel, Lord Esteros mentions, uh, he's here on my behalf. Like, people know that he's part of my
Mm,
entourage,
yeah.
and pretty much says, like, it's gonna be messy now. Because in spite of how this duel goes, now it's why is that person with Esteros wearing a Nightmare King mask?
Right. Right. So that definitely connects Esteros to the whole Moon Tower incident.
Exactly.
We were worried about him getting attacked. It didn't happen
Mhm.
at the ball. Well, I mean, I guess it still could happen at the ball. The ball's not over, but I'm worried for our boy, Eric's.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. He hasn't really done much during this ball for, getting out and about. He's kinda just been
Yeah,
laying low. I kind of expected him to kinda have his own plan for how rare he gets out,
that's true.
to try to help facilitate this plan of identifying who the members of the quorum are.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point. I guess, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say maybe it was happening off screen, but I get not really though, because I think he just was with his team pretty much the whole time.
right.
So I don't know. Maybe he still has something to contribute in this next episode, but that's a good point. He just kind of chilled, wallflowered with Grease. Which
Yeah.
speaking of, and who knows if we'll get it given everything that's happening, especially with Chetney not even being there at the moment, since he Chetney did get away successfully, right? At the end of the episode, like he left, or is he still right there with
No, I think
Imoth?
he made sure not to step into the room, so she, like,
Okay.
reshut it. Because I think maybe Travis realized, "Hey, being in this room with the Shade Creepers would probably be really bad."
Yeah. Okay.
So I think he made sure to say he never actually stepped in.
Okay. So I
I
think,
mean, Lady Emoth, I mean, she's 0 for 3 now on doors.
yeah.
She's found it ajar twice, and someone broke the lock, presumably Cyrus, to come in. Um, Emoth, lady, I mean, surely by now you've realized
Get a clue.
something's going on here. But
Yeah. Okay. So Chetney, I guess he's not back with everyone else yet, but at least
he's like in the hallway, maybe, I
yes,
think.
he's seemingly on his way back. But anyway, what I was going to say was the whole Ajit Dial connection. I was excited to maybe find out more about that. Now, I don't know if we'll get that since this duel is happening and probably the focus is going to be elsewhere. But that was a really cool connection that, I think Sam or somebody had to even remind Travis of once it happened. They're like, hey, that's the guy from your backstory that you're supposed to find.
Yeah, with the Gorgonite or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
that Gurge had told him about, like, the
right.
meeting that he should go make happen. Yeah, it was really funny, like, Travis being like, "Oh, okay, cool," and everyone was like, "Travis, that's your guy." He's
Which
like, "Oh, what?"
which remind me, the Gorgonite, is that the one that like will hunt you down if you are like a werewolf that's biting people type of thing, or was that the other one?
I don't think we got a name for the one that will hunt you down, or
Okay,
it was implied to also be the Gorgonite.
okay.
Gorgani,
Which I don't know.
something.
I really want to. I mean, whether they're that same group or not, I'm interested to find out more about them. So I was hoping to kind of get to meet Ajit and find
Right,
out some stuff.
right,
So maybe we still will. I guess we at least know he's around, even if they don't get to it at the ball.
right. Yeah. So what are your guesses for what happens next episode? We're having the duel, and then is Chetney going to be like, "Hey guys, we got to get over to this crazy lady's room. Like something
I
might be
mean,
happening to Cyrus or."
I think so. I just don't know how you necessarily like. To me, it doesn't seem like the duel is just gonna like be done once it's done. I feel like there's implicate like you mentioned, people know that he's connected to Esdras, so I feel like there's gonna be like that's not just gonna end when their fight ends. So I don't know if they'll be able to be like, okay, well that's over. Let's go. Let me go check on Cyrus altogether. But I feel like that's what they need to do because I mean, like we talked about, is he dead? Like, did she? Is he with her? Is he working with her? I feel like that's priority number one because like some stuff's going down, and but yeah, I mean, rambling, but predictions, I
We
guess, are the duel's going to go one way or the other. It'll be interesting. We don't know what class uh Rakanish is,
Yeah.
but did they? I'm sorry, I'm going six ways here, but did they ever decide if it was a fist fight or they were going to use weapons?
I'm not sure. I think Ashton suggested a fist fight or something, but
Yeah, if it is a fist fight, and again, I know nothing about Ratanish or what level he is or anything, but if it's a fist fight, I feel like Ashton does have a pretty good advantage because damage is way lower because you're just it's strength plus one or whatever it is, right? But Ashton can rage, which will half all damage. So essentially,
Mm,
unless Rakanish or Tanish can also rage, he's going to be doing only 50% damage. So I
right.
feel like if that is the case and he's not massively high leveled, then Ashton probably has a pretty good chance. But I mean, he's probably pretty high level, and he may very well be a barbarian as well. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
was trying to
so
get like a sense of like his physical presence as a half giant, like how big he was, and
yeah,
I wasn't quite sure of any of that other than
it's probably Grog is a good
yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
thing to put in your mind for that.
Oh, one thing about Ashton. So is his real name Aaron Bennett?
Do you think so?
Well, I don't know. He part of me thought it was just like kind of like a funny like Aaron Bennett Ashton, and then I started thinking like we don't have a full name from Ashton yet. So could
Mm-mm.
it be Aaron Bennett Ashton? Aaron Ashton? I don't know.
That would be interesting because he also said Aaron to Marwa, right?
Right.
So I don't know if maybe at the ball he said Aaron because of that incident, or it could be he said it both times because maybe that is his real name and he couldn't think of anything else. Um,
Right.
I don't know. That would be interesting though.
Well, because with F.C.G. even asked like, hey, so you know, ask them like, what do you prefer? Do you want Ashton? Do you want Aaron? Or And he was kind of weird about it. Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, that was just some random name I came out. He was kind of like, yeah, I mean, you could try it. I mean, sure, or maybe just Ashton, or it was just weird. It was a weird conversation, and so that's why I
Yeah.
thought maybe there's more to it than just, oh, that was some random name, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we didn't start out with the character's real name, so would be interesting.
What does that mean?
But yeah, I don't
So,
think I really answered your question ultimately. I don't really know, but I mean, I imagine the duel happens, whoever wins, you know, kind of regardless. I feel like that's going to lead to something where either they got to get out or another greater conflict starts, and they're going to have to wrestle between that and what Chetney knows. I mean, assuming even Chetney can get back to them. I mean, since he hasn't made it yet, who knows? He might
right,
get stopped on the way or something.
right,
Um,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I imagine those two things to be what this next episode is about for the most part.
It could be a really big episode, especially since we're going to be taking a 2-week break. We think. I mean, they said that moving forward, the last week they take off, they said for the most part. So I think there might be some months where they like, hey, we're just going to go ahead and do another one.
Right. Yeah.
But I think they had that there just for the security of like we can take a break if we need to.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this is the last one for a couple weeks or not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else you want to mention from the episode?
Not off the top of my head. No, I think we covered most of it.
Well, definitely, you guys listening, tell us your favorite thoughts, theories, ideas for what could be happening next, or what could be happening behind the scenes. And like we said at the start of this episode, we're gonna be doing that favorite theory video. So definitely hit us, whatever your macro or micro theories are, and we'll grab a handful that we really like and share about them here in the next couple weeks. So
Yeah.
thumbnail
Yeah.
should be like a mask or something. Like,
That's what I was thinking. Maybe like ripping off the mask, but I don't know how you like really convey that.
yeah, I don't either. If I had like a piece of cloth, I'd be one of us like holding it, and the other person like shocked. But I
Good idea.
I don't keep random pieces of cloth around me.
Yeah, I guess we could just do some masks, like our hands or something, like,
Yeah, sure.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
All right, I'm gonna take my headset off to make this easier.
sure.
Nice.
We need our compilation of just random shots. So
I have an not now, but I have an idea maybe for something we could do for some thumbnails. I'll talk to you about it later.
All right.
But yeah, one final thing. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow's Thursday, meaning episode 14 of campaign 3, but also the final 3 episodes of The Legend of Vox Machina are dropping. Gonna do another watch party, so if you guys, anyone's interested, swing by. I'm sure we'll link it or something. But 6 p.m. Central on Thursday, so tomorrow is when that'll be. So come through. Let's watch the final 3 episodes, and then we can get excited for episode 14 after that.
Yeah, a lot of Critical Role in one day. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sad because it's our last Vox Machina drop.
Yep.
But I'm excited for the finale.
Also, don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at the Pixelists, and don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
So that's all we got.
Alrighty, y'all.
All right.
See you next time.